What's up, peeps of YouTube? So, if you follow me on Twitter, which there's a link to the Twitter account down below in case you aren't yet, then you probably saw that I did have a nice little run with Sultai Shadow yesterday. So, of course, we had to take a moment to get that league up on the tube, make sure everybody got to witness history in the making, or at least that's what I want to tell myself. But really, it's just like some good value shadow action. So I've been kind of messing around with Sultai for the last few days. I've got like a couple more backlog videos that I'll get up on YouTube eventually. But I've said before, I'll say it again. It's my favorite color combination in Magic. I think it has everything that I want out of like a shadow deck. The hand disruption, the shadows, the counter magic, and the big, just good body secondary threat that Tarmogoyf provides. We added in a couple little pieces here and there as well. So, for example, the 4 Orcish Bowmasters. Bowmaster, as you've seen, has been showing up literally everywhere. And unless you're running like 4 main deck Stern Scoldings or something, then playing Bowmaster is one of the best ways to fight opposing Bowmasters. We've got 2 copies of Ledger Shredder. I just wanted like one extra threat, couple extra bodies, and figured Ledger Shredder might give me what I was thinking. I had Tireless Tracker in that spot before, but wasn't finding a lot of spots to have like Tracker plus the 4th land to kind of get an advantage with those clues. I've got a main deck Dress Down, which I know people are going to say, oh, Dress Down Tarmogoyf, Nombo. Yeah, but Dress Down is just like such an insanely powerful card by itself that I think it's worth running the risk to have access to it. We've got 4 Stubborn Denial, 4 Fatal Push, 4 Thoughtseize, 4 Street Wraith, 4 Drown in the Lock, kind of our support cards, as well as 4 Mishra's Baubles. So we got Wraith Bauble, Thoughtseize, Fatal Push to kind of help get Tarmogoyf up to that 4-5, 5-6 point. We've got the Dress Down in there. Might be able to get it up to like a 7-8, which we do have a couple Grist in the sideboard as well. Speaking of which, let's talk about the sideboard. 2 Engineered Explosives, 2 Grist the Hunger Tide, mainly for any of the grindy mid-range matchups, like your scam matchups, your 4-color Omnath piles, 5-color piles, stuff like that. Second copy of Terra Sunder. You will see we have a Terra Sunder and a Spell Pierce in the main. It's mostly for things like Blood Moon, Fable of the Mirror Breaker, the Ring, Spell Pierce hitting Planeswalkers. But Terra Sunder being flexible enough to have the option to kick it to take out like a Murktide or an Omnath or something like that. It's pretty nice. We got 2 copies of Turok, probably the best card you can have against like the 5-color pile decks. Just invalidate Prismatic Ending, Solitude, Leyline Binding. 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Stern Scolding, card that I'm trying out. I think I've cast it once, but I figure it might be pretty decent against a lot of these Abzan piles, these Samwise Gamgee combo piles that are showing up. Hits everything in that deck for 1 mana. Outside of Ranger Captain of Eos, if they're running that. Second copy of Dress Down, and then 3 copies of Spreading Seas. Spreading Seas has really overperformed for me against the Saga decks, just being able to strip mine, draw a card. But you also have a lot of times where you can like mess up your opponent's mana enough against the Leyline Binding decks and such to buy yourself a couple extra turns, which a lot of times is all you really need to get from where you are to crossing the finish line. So let's go ahead and showcase some Magic. Nobody's here to have me blab on about the deck list. They want results. They want to see how it works. Round 1, mono red, or we don't know mono red, Obosh. So 1s, 3s, 5s. Means that there's a very likely chance to be a Ragavan in our future. I could bobble myself and pass the turn, but if I'm against Obosh, I'm assuming Blood Moon is in their deck, and I might want to fetch up a basic with this Polluted Delta. So delaying the decision gives me the most time possible to kind of think about whether or not I want to get a basic. See if I draw a green fetch. We got second rag. We'll go ahead and fatal push this one as well. I know people are screaming like, oh, value, Bowmaster, ping the Ragavan. I really want to save this Bowmaster for like turn 3 in case they have a seasoned Pyromancer or a Fable of the Mirror Breaker or something like that. And I can turn this Bowmaster into a legitimate like clock because it's the only thing I have going on right now. But if my opponent, if I Bowmaster my opponent's Ragavan and they have like a Flame Slash or a Fury or something like that, then I could just lose my Bowmaster without getting any value past just pinging a guy. And I've got plenty of stuff like the Fatal Pushes to get rid of cheap dudes. So I'd rather save the Bowmaster for the high upside. Turn 3, they're just adding Obosh to hand. So we will be mana efficient and get the Bowmaster down. Since they didn't go for like a Spyro or something. And now that I've got Drown in the Lock, I can fight over a 3-drop here, a Blood Moon or a Spyro. So like this, they did have the Fury. I was actually shocked to see the Blood Moon after seeing the Sacred Foundry, Rogren Triumph, Steam Vents mana base. I was like, you not want the additional colors there? And Solitude. So Blood Moon in the main of your 3-color Solitude deck. Who am I to judge? So we know the last 2 cards are Obosh and an Unknown. Now, Obosh, Unknown. Yeah, I think I wanted to save this Bowmaster again. Like, I'm trying to get extra value out of this Bowmaster and have it be a little bit better than just to raise the alarm. We will protect the shadow. So, Obosh, Unknown again. Hoping this, like, backs him into a corner for a Spyro. Nope. More marches. Well, now I can't really afford to wait for the value play. I just need to get a clock. And this is kind of where a lot of my evaluation questions for Bowmaster come in. Like, all right, is this good enough? So far, I've played 2 Bowmasters, and they've been ping once each, one hidden for 2, the second one's hidden for 4 now. And then we got a hard cast Street Wraith that we are absolutely trying to go the distance with. This is why we don't play out the shadow first. Combat first. They Solitude away our Street Wraith. We get the shadow back up. We can fight over a 3-drop. But we don't have to fight over our opponent scooping. So, on to game 2. Sideboarding against the mono red deck. Just trimmed like some Thoughtseizes, some Street Wraiths. Brought in like the extra copy of Dress Down to fight over Seasoned Pyromancer ETB, Fury ETB, stuff like that. And then what else did I bring in? Terra Sunder for Blood Moon and Fable. All right, so we saw Elish Norn, March of Otherworldly Light, Fable. Take the Fable. It's a big like value piece. We've got Drown in the Lock to hopefully eventually fight over the Elish Norn. Maybe. Possible. So opponent's got a Steam Vents. They just like skip through this turn without playing it. So we're just going to cycle the Dress Down. Like Dress Down doesn't really do anything into Elish Norn. And we need to find action. Less land, more action. Oh man, held myself up mid cough there. Get prepared in case we find a shadow, and we do. So now we've got Shadow plus drown. Counter anything that might kill our shadow. Can't counter an Elish Norn. But that's okay. We'll find something. So my hope here is that if I attack in, I thought about fetching, but then if my opponent drops Obosh, then they'll be able to lethal swing in with the Elish Norn. I can't deal with it. So I wanted to make sure that if they, let me see if I can explain this. If they play Obosh, I can't answer it. So they're going to hit me for 8 down to 1. And if they do anything, then I might have a chance to drown and lock the Obosh, especially if they play like a backup Ragavan or something to block. Then I might be able to like push one thing, drown the Obosh or the Elish Norn, maybe attack him with Shadow. But opponent fetched before they went to combat, so we're just gonna kill the Elish Norn, not take the 8 because now we've got the ability to fetch and kind of control our own life total. Get down the Tarmogoofy. We're gonna march our Tarmogoofy. Attack in for 6. So I'm assuming some sort of follow-up. The follow-up is Sekinzen, which is not quite good enough against our double fatal push. So really nice that we got to get some value out of those pushes after all. Force across lethal there. And on to game number 2. While we're getting started in the second match, be sure to drop a like and subscription on the video if you're enjoying the content, enjoying the commentary. We've got a link to the Twitter down below if you want to know whenever our live stream's going live. Speaking of which, we've got a link to the Twitch account down below, so you never have to miss a live stream. And deck list. But up against Burn, we do get to Thoughtseize away a Lightning Bolt. We see they still got Skewer, Lightning Helix. No more Goblin Guide. No more Skewer. We could Thoughtseize here and take the Lightning Helix, but I'm kind of just sitting on Stub. Honestly, I probably should Thoughtseize. Let's actually pause real quick. So if I Thoughtseize pre-combat, and my opponent goes for the Helix, and I Stub, if their last card is a land, then I go down to 6. I'm dealing 7, putting them down to 7. They'd have to top deck 2 burn spells. If I don't Thoughtseize, I'm dealing 5, putting them down to 9. I have Stub for the Helix. I'm still at 8. They have to draw 3 burn spells in 2 turns, or yeah, or like double Boros Charm. So yeah, I think the clock's kind of the same either way. They either have to draw 3 burn spells in 3 draw steps if I don't Thoughtseize. Or no, they're 14 now. If I Thoughtseize first, they'd be at 12, 2 more turns. They would have to draw, 2 burn spells in 3 draws with 2 natural draws in the Sunbaked Canyon. So 2 out of 3. If I don't Thoughtseize, 3 turn clock, I'm at 8. They have to draw 3 burn spells in 4 draws. So it's either 2 burn spells in 3 draws or 3 burn spells in 4 draws. Yeah. So I don't think it really matters too much. Personally, I like the idea of making them draw more burn spells in more draws. But apparently, if your opponent has main deck exquisite firecraft, none of it really mattered. That was kind of crazy that they had not only 2 4 damage burn spells, but main deck firecraft is something I have not seen. Sideboarding against burn, bringing out a bunch of thought seizes and street wraiths, bringing in like fluster storms, Turoks, sometimes the extra dress down, depends how afraid of Sanctifier on Vec I am. But Goy, fantastic turn 2 play. Especially if our opponent's going to send a bunch of burn upstairs. Here, just playing out Turok as a blocker for like a Goblin Guide or a Swift Spear or something, because all I'm really trying to do is untap with Goy swinging, play down a Shadow with counter backup, which we get to do here. And there's that exquisite Firecraft again, so don't I look stupid for having Fluster Storms and Stubborn Denials in my deck. But not that it matters, because we had lethal attack on the back crack with the Fatal Push anyway. On to game 3. First hand's a no, second hand's a maybe. Like, with this hand, we're definitely hoping they don't come out of the gate too fast. So them not having a 1-drop creature is fantastic for us. And then seeing Deflecting Palm. So if you're a big, like, Twitter follower, you might have seen the post yesterday that Sodek put up about turn 1 against Grixis Shadow. Like, your opponent fetches, shocks, plays a Blood Crypt, and plays out a Ragavan. And you, as the burn player, are you supposed to kill the Ragavan with your bolt, attack him with Goblin Guide, try to save like the Searing Blaze in hand to kill the Ragavan later. And I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to answer, and I might still answer, from the Shadow perspective. And a lot of times it's, hey, I feel fantastic if my opponent is throwing out creatures post board when I'm on the play. So if I make the first move, I want my opponent to play creatures. If I'm on the draw, I never want to see creatures. Creatures are horrible because now I have to fetch on my turn to use a removal spell on a creature that you could untap and have more of, and it gets really bad to snowball. So I thought that was a pretty interesting, like, thought experiment there. I guess that's the word. So anyway, we're gonna Spreading Seas, Sacred Foundry, get a little more draw, a little more information, which looks really good in the face of our opponent main phasing a Skewer the Critics on us. I could play out Goyf, but the Drown in the Lock being able to counter any of the burn spells and the hope that my opponent just fires off the Deflecting Palm on this 2/2 Shadow means I'm pretty happy getting it out. But Spreading Seas against a deck like Burn can actually do a lot more work than you think it does, because between cards like Searing Blaze, Deflecting Palm, Boros Charm, Lightning Helix, they need colored pips a lot of the time to be able to double spell. So, for example, if my opponent's got like a Boros Charm or a Helix in hand, they can't cast the Deflecting Palm and the second Boros Charm or Helix or whatever. So hopefully I can slow down my opponent's momentum here a bit. So second Deflecting Palm. Nope. Draw off Sunbaked Canyon. Don't find anything relevant. And Goyf and Shadow get across the finish line. Nice. 2-0. 2-0 moving to match 3. Against Paid Actor. I thought that was a fantastic MTGO name. So Breeding Pool, Exile Crashing Footfalls. All right, Rhinos. Haven't seen Rhinos in a while, so it's kind of cool to see them out in the queues. feel like for whatever reason, this deck really, really died off when the Lord of the Rings set came about. All right, so we got Thoughtseize. Sees triple Force of Negation Murktide. So if they find another Cascade spell, they're going to be protecting it pretty well, especially if it's a Violent Outburst. But we find third land, so now we can stub plus Drown in the Lock. We can fight over the one that they have coming off suspend if they find an answer for our stuff that's killing them next turn. Which they do not. So we're on to game number 2. Really getting some good pressure down with Shadow, coupled with the fact that our opponent just like didn't have much going on. So on the draw, we do have our good bobble trick here. If you don't know the bobble trick, it's the ability to bobble yourself with a fetch land, see if it's something that you want there, and then if it is, you can cycle Street Wraith to draw into it if you've got a 1 mana play, or you can just pass the turn. Here, I'm really looking for like a second land or a Thoughtseize. So I want to like go ahead and fetch if I don't see one of those things, and cycle Wraith to give myself the chance to draw into it. Footfalls off the, or not off the top, just Footfalls out of this Shardless Agent. Pretty solid, but I do have these big chunky Tarmogoyfs. Unfortunately, Temur Rhinos is a deck that has a tremendous amount of tap and bounce effects. So playing out like a Tarmogoyf with no protection is a little scary. All right, they've got Fury, so I'm just kind of hoping they don't have Fury plus a 2 damage spell, which is why I'm blocking. Yeah, very, very punished there. It's why I'm blocking the Shardless Agent and a Rhino instead of 2 Rhinos. If I block 2 Rhinos, then I know Fury plus red card kills both of my Goyfs. But if I block Rhino plus a Shardless Agent, then Fury red card kills 1 Tarmogoyf, but I still get to keep 1 around and hopefully untap into EE. But now I'm just going to pop EE while they don't have a board presence. Third Rhinos. Really need to find a land. Nice. So now we can at least like get down a Shadow, kill a Rhino, have a blocker for a Rhino. Unless their last card is Mystical Dispute, in which case, yeah, we gave it the old college try. A for effort, but it just goes to show being on the draw, missing a land drop, it adds up. All right. Thoughtseize on 1. See Footfalls, Mystical Dispute, Petty Theft, Endurance. Go ahead and take the Endurance so we can get down Tarmogoyf and not have it get shrunk. I'm really surprised they didn't suspend Footfalls on turn 1. And then they went. So this is, I've got to talk about how huge of a sequence this is for this game. So I played out the Thoughtseize on 1, took the Endurance so they couldn't shrink my Tarmogoyf. The Goyf on 2. I was expecting my opponent to suspend the Footfalls on 1. Pass to turn 2. I play the Goyf. They play second land, Petty Theft. And then turn 3, I replay the Goyf, and they just play out the Brazen Borrower. And there was a really good chance they were going to win that race from there. But with my opponent not exiling or not suspending the Crashing Footfalls turn 1 and holding up the Mystical Dispute into suspending Footfalls on 2 and not petty thefting, now I just get like 3 big damage in with the Tarmogoyf that I was not expecting, especially since I know I've got these double counter spells up. Then like taking an extra hit here, going for the petty theft that I get to stub. And now I kind of feel like I'm rolling because, hey, Tarmogoyf's going to be lethal by the time the Rhinos come off suspend. I've got Stubborn Denial to fight over another Rhinos. I've got this Fatal Push to kill a Rhino. I know one of their unknown cards is Mystical Dispute, which I can pay for. And yeah, I'm just going to put down a bunch of Goyfs, because even if you like top deck a Shardless Agent here, I can kill a Rhino, force double chump on the other two. Like, pretty good chance of drawing something relevant. But either way, pick up the win. On to 3-0 and on to match number 4. So we've got double Bobble, double Overgrown Tomb. We got Tarmogoyf. We see Craggenwick Cremator on top. Oh boy. If we find a blue source, then we might be okay. We still need to get Tarmogoyf up big enough to have a live Stubborn Denial. Just going to hope that my opponent doesn't Lightning Bolt my Goyf. It is important to note that them only having 2 mana on turn 2, I know it sounds crazy, but it means that they can't use a blood token to discard an Emrakul and then Goryo's Vengeance it. So I do have kind of like a free turn to set up. But finding Dress Down here is huge, because now I can Dress Down a Craggenwick Cremator. Since I don't have double blue, I'm main phase firing off this Bowmaster, get some blockers out of the way, get Tarmogoyf in for a bit of damage. Because my best bet is going to be Dress Down the Cremator and like attack in, hopefully force lethal. But instead, I guess opponent, well, they have the Swamp. I know they have the Swamp, but I guess they didn't want to go for the randomness of Cremator if they don't have like the Emrakul in hand. So instead, they put some cookbooks on board. I get to Dress Down the Construct token, making sure to cast the Dress Down in their second main phase, so it sacks itself at their end of turn instead of on my turn. And that lets me deal with some Craggenwicks, or deal with a Construct Wick. Oh boy. Thoughtseize into double Blood Moon, Craggenwick Cremator, Emrakul, Goryo's Vengeance. Top deck a cookbook. So Blood Moon in the Urza Saga deck, a little bit of a nombo, but you can see why they played the Urza Saga first. They do get the Blood Moon down. This also means that they currently don't have a third land. They're currently drawing into a third land. So my only chance is to end this game before they draw the fourth land, which odds are, all right, second Cremator. So they get to make a food here, but I do have a 5/6 Goyf. It's basically going to be them having 3 draws at the fourth land versus me hitting them in the face with a Tarmogoyf over and over again. Basic Swamp's not bad. I do not run a basic island in this list, so basic Swamp means like Thoughtseize is live, but that's about it. Fourth land, Cremator. So it's a 50-50. 50% shot to discard the second Cremator, 50% to hit Emrakul and just kill me on the spot. You'd love to see it. Fingers crossed. Discard Cremator. We're still in this. Draw basic Forest. How good of gamers can we be? And opponent scoops up from there. So that was like both 50-50 loss by our opponent. We draw the basic Forest, which is phenomenal. They've got an Emrakul stuck in hand and a second unknown dead card, maybe. So, like, I don't know how we got out of that one, but I'm sure anybody will tell you that just about every hot run with the deck, especially like a trophy league or something like that, has got some number of, oh man, how did I get that lucky moments? All right, so up against like a red-black mid-range list. Thoughtseize on one. I kept a one-lander. I know I say it a lot in leagues, but I wouldn't keep this hand in a premier event. But on the draw in a league with a hand that really opens up if I hit like a fetch land, I kind of want to give it a shot. Thoughtseize takes Dolthy because I've got the Dismember for the Shieldred. I've got counter spells for the Terminate. I do not have an answer for a One Ring. So we're going to go to game number 2. Sideboarding, boarding out some Wraiths, some Thoughtseizes, boarding in Dress Down, Grist. See a Ring on top. Ring on top, but we do just have a Goyf to get down here. Little Goyf into Grist action. I thought about attacking with a Goyf, but I did not want my opponent to have like an EOT bolt on the insect, untap, hit me with Ragavan, and get down the ring this turn. So I decided to hold back with the Goyf. I kind of am under that thought that if I untap with Spell Pierce and Drown, like there's a really good chance I'm not going to have to worry about the ring going forward. And because I have multiple blockers now, I can focus around dealing with the Ragavan. As expected, there's the ring. Opponent also kind enough to put 4 cards into their graveyard, so we can Drown and lock another copy of the ring. Plus the ring. Yep, we're gonna drown that pretty quickly. And I guess opponent just didn't want any of what was coming their way. Grist reigning supreme in the mid-range mirror match. All right, mulligan decisions. Let's talk about that first one a little bit. So on the draw, double Bowmaster. If I don't hit a second land, the hand does nothing. If my opponent's got a Ragavan, then Bowmaster on the draw is like a little too slow. So we mull. This hand is way, way better. We've got Thoughtseize into an answer for Ragavan, or a couple answers for Ragavan. Answer to like Blood Moon, Fable, whatever big 3-drop. We've got a Grist. Throwback Bauble because we don't have like a Tarmogoyf or anything. And then opponent leading on Thoughtseize is phenomenal for us because they also mulliganed. So we're just like trading 1 for 1 here. And we've got Bowmaster, Grist. Hold up Stubborn Denial in case of Blood Moon. So cheeky little top deck Stubborn Denial coming in clutch here. This also lets us get down a basic with the Verdant Catacombs. I didn't want to fetch until my turn in case I drew another fetch that could get my second basic. But since I didn't, I'm just going to get down Grist. I do have a Blood Moon, so we're locked out of this Stubborn Denial, but we are not locked out of hitting our opponent in the face with insect tokens. Magic Online decided on the replay function it was going to get a little bit laggy right here, so bear with it. I promise you don't want to skip through this game. So we're Gristin. Opponent's missing threats here, but they did have just like double Thoughtseize into double Blood Moon. So I'm sure them taking the approach of like, I'll find a land or something to do is pretty nice. So the last card is obviously an answer to the Bowmaster. They knew we had the Bowmaster in hand from that first Thoughtseize. So I'm not really surprised that they wouldn't play out the Seasoned Pyromancer until they had an answer to the Bowmaster. But I'm just trying to tick up Grist, like get whatever points of damage I can in, tick up Grist so that I might be able to like ult Grist in a bit. The old triple token clear out, get down another Bowmaster. instead of bowmastering your bowmaster, we're going to bowmaster your Spyro. I love this Grist just like taking away. The only problem is Grist kept hitting like drowns and fatal pushes and lands when I really needed it to hit creatures so that I could threaten the ultimate. See a Dolthy Voidwalker off the top of their library. Got another Bowmaster to ping the Grist. Fortunately, like if our opponent does top deck a ring, they can't get a lot of use out of it. So that's a big positive. I know I'm taking up the Grist into the Dolthy, but if I see something that I really don't want them to have, I can Fatal Push the Dolthy while it has Summoning Sickness. Uh, but I don't know for sure if I'm Fatal Pushing the Dolthy yet. So I don't want to just like fire that off if I don't have a reason to. But with them attacking at the Grist, then I'm absolutely going to kill the Dolthy because I need to keep this Grist with a somewhat reasonable loyalty. All right, so they get a Fable. I get a Shadow. This is third Bowmaster. We felt reasonable for a minute. Now we're kind of feeling a little sketchy. I say a little sketchy, a lot of sketchy. I only have 3 creature cards in my yard. So I could win off like back-to-back Grist ultimates, but they're just attacking Grist every turn, so I don't really have the ability to set up Grist with 10 loyalty. Yeah, Grist gets popped down to 6. Another Fable. And wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Come on. Moto. Moto, please. I'm like clicking away feverishly at the play buttons to try to get this to speed up. All right. You drew a Bowmaster for turn. What is your play? What's your thought process here? Take a second, pause the video if you want, think about it. What have you got going on? What are your potentials? What could maybe happen to get you out of this? And for me, it's a really, really funny line. So it involves a bit of top deck unfortune from our opponent. But if you see it, you might get a laugh out of it. So my opponent has got this whole wide board of stuff going on. They've got this second Fable coming off or drawing next turn. They've got a Fable flipping next turn. So like if the game keeps going, they're going to be able to just Fable Bowmasters, and I got nothing. Like they can just make a dude, kill my Grist token, make their army bigger, and I don't have a chance of coming back from that. But we have a little potential line here of between this Grist insect token and the Orcish Bowmaster shooting something down and making an army token, assuming our opponent top deck's dead, that maybe we can finagle our way to keeping Grist at a certain amount of loyalty, namely enough to ultimate. So when our opponent makes this attack in, and if they, first off, we played Bowmaster on their upkeep, so if they decided to Fable and draw, we would get extra Bowmaster triggers, which they didn't, so at the mercy of the one top deck on the top of their library. We shoot down one of their Bowmasters. We set up blocks to keep our grist at 5 loyalty. Put our bowmaster into the yard. If they had attacked with the other bowmaster as well, we could have put a block on the second fable token, um, instead of like one of the other 1/1 tokens to make sure grist stayed at 5 loyalty. Very, very important. Grist stays at 5 loyalty because when bowmaster goes to the yard, we now have 4 creatures in our yard. Since we are at this magical above 13 number, we were able to put a 5th creature in the yard. And because Grist counts himself, that Grist for 6 gives us exactly lethal to kill with a Grist ultimate for the trophy. Really, really fun final match there. Nice little puzzle to solve to get out of that board stall. Just goes to show that Orcish Bowmaster, even as a raise the alarm, is pretty okay. Flash in, ping something, double chump block, stop my opponent from fabling. So really cool to see there. Obviously, if they had drawn like a Fury or a Bolt or anything relevant there, then the plan wouldn't have worked. But because they didn't, it did. So let's talk about some of the card choices here. What worked, what didn't work. Ledger Shredder's okay. I don't know if we're like proactive enough to really get a lot of use out of it between Fatal Push, Stubborn Denial, Drown in the Lock, Street Wraith not counting as a spell, Bowmaster. There's not a ton of like main phase double spelling here. So I could very well see the Ledger Shredder be something else. I did like moving the grist to the sideboard and making the main board more linear and straightforward. I was kind of hoping that the Ledger Shredder would help the issue of flooding out or drawing the wrong half, kind of straightening things out a little bit. So if that's something that's really important to you, then I think keeping the Shredder could be fine. You could even find room for the third one if you wanted to cut Dismember or Pierce or Tear Asunder or something. I was on Gigantha, not running Wraith or Dismember, but Wraith has been like way too critical to the success of the deck. Just giving extra card type for Goyf, giving the life loss for Shadow. I've played I've hard cast Wraith more times with this list than I have with Temur already. So it has been relevant multiple times. Let's see what else. Dismember could be something else, but there hadn't really been a lot that I've wanted to try. If you're really missing TBR, you could run a couple of TBR and splash a red fetch or red shock land. But I haven't really felt like it's been a necessity for me. In the board, Stern Scolding, like I said before, I've cast Stern Scolding, I think once. And I don't know if that spot's worth it or not. I kind of keep trying to test it so that I do see it, but I'm just like not seeing it when I do bring it in against burn or small aggressive creature decks. I do kind of miss having a sweeper style effect like Path of Peril. But with Goyf, Bowmaster, Shredder, Shadow, it looks a lot worse than it does with Murktide and Shadow of Mortality. But I'm going to keep messing around with Sultai. Like, I think the list is really fun. I think if I can find a Sultai list that works for me, I'll be thrilled with it. I know people are asking about the battle variants, the invasion of Ikoria. I'm just not a fan of that tech. I think it's cool, and if it works for you, it works for you. But for me, 4 mana for like a Tarmogoyf for a Hex Mage is a really big ask, especially out of a deck that kind of wants to stop its curve at 3. And then you're only as good as like Shadow and Goyf are. I mean, you can you can invasion for a Hex Mage, but like the flip side of invasion is dying to everything that Goyf and Shadow are, but it's not really doing anything better than those cards. So just be careful if you are wanting to run that tech. Like, it does make you so much heavier on green too. So you have to start looking at breeding pool, like multiple breeding pools, if you want to have the ability to invasion and run a lot of counter magic for like opposing rings and stuff. But you don't want a bunch of breeding pools in your Thoughtseize, Shadow, Bowmaster, Street Wraith deck. So yeah, not really a great answer for that. I'm just going to keep testing with what works for me and see how it goes. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the description below. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, enjoy some good food and company, and I will catch y'all back live later. Adios for now.